What do Navy SEAL, Olympic athletes, and entrepreneurs all have in common? They've mastered the art of commitment devices. And now you can as well. They are powerful psychological tools that force follow through, even when motivation disappears. I've researched 37 different commitment devices, and today I'm revealing the top 5 anyone can start using immediately. However, I want you to be aware. Some of these might feel uncomfortable at first, but that's exactly why they work. Let me guess. You set big goals before, only to watch them fade when life gets busy. It's not your fault. Relying on motivation alone is like hoping the weather stays perfect for a picnic. Commitment devices are way better. They are strategies that make failure more painful. And in action, think automatic transfers to savings, public goal declarations, or even financial penalties. Anything that forces you to pass resistance. So today I'll show you the most effective ones and how to implement them. So stick with me. By the end, you have tools to lock yourself into success. Have you ever wondered why gym membership works even if you never go? It's because of something called loss aversion. When you pay for something upfront, your brain hates the idea of wasting that money more than it wants the potential benefits. And that's why people who prepare for fitness show up 90% more often than those who pay per section. So commitment devices are simply ways to lock yourself into future actions. They work because they remove the choice in the moment when your willpower is the weakest. And research has shown that relying on willpower alone fails 70% of the time. A study from the University of Pennsylvania found that people who put money on the line were 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals. In one experiment, participants who faced financial penalties for missing workout exercised 50%, often more than the control group. So it's not about punishing yourself, it's about using how your brain already works. And another study published in the Journal of Health Economics showed something interesting. When smokers were offered a savings account where they would lose their money if they didn't quit, 30% more people successfully stopped smoking compared to those who try to quit on their own. So this works because of how our brains make decisions. The part of your brain that wants instant gratification is strong, but it can be outsmarted. So when you set up a commitment device in advance, you're letting your rational self make the rules, not your impulsive self. And the most effective commitment devices share 3 things in common. The first is that they make the cost of quitting higher than the cost of continuing. And the second, they are specific about what counts as success. And then the third, someone else is usually involved, whether it's a friend holding you accountable, or a coach, or an app tracking your progress. You can see this principle in all kinds of places. College students who prepare for textbooks are more actually likely to read them. Apps that charge if you don't meet your step goal get people working more. And writers who tell their audience they'll publish a chapter weekly finish their books faster. Even top performers use these tricks. Olympic athletes have coaches waiting for them at 5 a.m. workouts because knowing someone is expecting you makes you show up. CEOs hire executive coaches to report their progress to because it creates accountability. So the key takeaway here is that your brain responds more strongly to avoiding losses than to pursuing gains. Commitment devices turn this tendency into advantage. Even that small step can double your chances of success. Writer wanted to finish her novel but kept putting it off for years. Then she tried something radical. She gave her friend $1,000 to hold, and the deal was simple. If she didn't write 1,000 words for every day for 30 days, she would lose the money. This made her finish the entire first draft that month. Most people think they'll follow through on their own without accountability. But studies have shown that we overestimate our ability to stay disciplined alone. Researchers at the university found that people who put money on the line were 3 times more likely to reach their goals than those who didn't. So first, someone you trust, a friend, a family member, a co-worker. Then give them money you lose if you don't meet your commitment. The amount must hurt but not ruin you. Participants who risk losing money every time they missed a weigh-in, lost 50% more weight than the control group. So it wasn't about willpower anymore. It was about avoiding a concrete loss. Researchers also show that the same neural pathways as physical pain. Those given the option to donate their forfeited money to a charity or organization they don't like performed even better when their money went to the cause or charity they hated. So first, choose someone who won't let you off the hook. And second, pick an amount that stings but doesn't cause financial stress. You don't need huge sums to see results. The point isn't the dollar amount, it's the psychological weight attached to it. One person I spoke with said they are saving $100 to return only if they didn't write daily. And they published their first article within 2 months after years of procrastination. Platforms like CK formalize this process. And data from thousands of users shows that people who commit financially 3 to 4 times higher than those who don't. The technique was beyond the fitness or creative projects. One study has students pay deposits at the beginning of a course. Money they will only get back if they attend lectures. And attendance jumped by 30%. There's a reason this feels uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is the point. It's what makes the method work when motivation fails. And this is what happens when you tell 10,000 people you're going to do something. You actually do it. And this is the public shame method. When you make your goals public, failure becomes more embarrassing than the work required to succeed. People underestimate how much they care about others' opinion. A study from the Association for Psychological Science found that when people share their goals publicly, they were 65% more likely to achieve them. Employees who told their co-workers about their goals performed 33% than those who kept them private. Social accountability works because no one wants to look like they can't follow through. A writer struggling to finish a book started posting daily word counts on Twitter, on X. Their followers began asking about progress and they finished the manuscript within 3 months. So the fear of public failure kept them consistent. People who sent weekly reports to friends were 50% more likely to achieve them compared to those who didn't. And a study in motivation and emotion found that accountability to peers increased task completion by 72%. One fitness coach had clients post their workout selfies in a private group. The group success rate was 80% higher than clients who worked alone. So social media amplifies this effect. A developer learning coding streamed their progress on Twitch. The developer completed the project in half expected time. And a weight loss published in Obesity found that participants who shared weekly weigh-ins with a group lost twice as much weight as those who didn't. So the fear of looking foolish outweighs the appeal of rewards. The penalty group showed up 50% more often. So public accountability works the same way. Accountability to authority figures works better than peers for some goals. A student struggling with grades told their professor about their study plans. Knowing the professor will ask about progress led to higher scores. So to achieve this, define a clear measurable goal like writing 500 words daily or running 3 times a week. Then choose where to share it. One engineer announced coding milestones at team stand-ups, and the expectation of reporting progress kept them on track. Daily works for short-term goals, weekly or monthly suits longer projects. A freelancer posted client project deadlines in a Slack group, and knowing others will ask about delays kept them on schedule. So pick consequences for missing targets. Others schedule embarrassing tasks like singing karaoke if they fail, shaving their heads, or coloring their hair with some absurd colors. So the worse the consequence, the more motivating it becomes. Don't make goals too vague. Post workout photos every Monday will. Specific public commitments are 95% more effective than general ones. So the public shame method works because it taps into our deep-seated need for social approval. When you attach your reputation to a goal, failure stops being an option. One app developer tweeted, "If I don't shave by 1st of June. I'll eat a raw onion on video, and this made them shipped on 30th May. Public commitment also creates support. The public journey can bring unexpected opportunities. Telling 5 close friends can work better than telling 500 strangers because accountability to people we admire is most effective. Announcing goals at the start of a week or month leverages fresh start effects. One entrepreneur combined this with the money back trick. They pledged to donate $1,000 to a rival's charity if they missed a deadline and announced it on LinkedIn, and they met the deadlines with days to spare. So the public shame method turns your network into a motivation machine. Your surroundings shape your behavior more than willpower ever could. Research shows environment triggers automatic behavior without us realizing it. A study in the Journal of Environment and Behavior found that people with cereal on their kitchen counters weighed 20 pounds more than neighbors who didn't. So most people approach habits backward. They rely on motivation to overcome their environment instead of changing the environment to support their goals. So the key is removing friction for good habits and adding it for bad ones. If your phone is on your bedside table, you check it first thing in the morning. But if you charge it across the room, that extra effort makes you less likely to grab it immediately. A study from the University of Texas found that just having a smartphone visible reduces cognitive capacity by 10%, even if it's turned off. Like workers in open cubicles, they get interrupted every 11 minutes on average according to a research. And for those who work with headphones on or in a closed office or closed cubicle, their work time becomes more productive, not because they are more disciplined, but because their space makes focus easier. The Cornell Food and Brand Lab found that people eat 23% more fruit when it's placed in a bowl and on the counter. And conversely, hiding snacks in opaque containers reduces consumption by 25% compared to clear ones. And a research from Duke University suggests that 40% of daily actions are automatic responses to environmental cues. So changing the cues changes the behavior. And also, a study in the Journal of Social Psychology found that people who remove Facebook shortcuts from their phone reduces usage by 57%. And if you want to read more, place books on your coffee table instead of stacking them on your shelves. Research shows that simply displaying books increases reading time by 35%. And if you want to exercise in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes or place dumbbells next to your bed. A British Journal of Health Psychology found that participants who prepared their gym clothes the night before were 71% more likely to exercise. Also, another researcher at Princeton University found that clutter reduces focus and increases stress. But clearing surfaces isn't enough. You need to design positive triggers. And if you look at people who automate savings transfers, save 350% more than those who manually move money, according to a study in the Journal of Consumer Research. The military understands this well. Boot camps don't just teach discipline, they redesign environments completely. A study in the International Journal of Obesity found that participants who rearranged their kitchens lost 3 times more weight without counting calories. And research from the New England Journal of Medicine shows obesity spread through social networks, and the most effective systems don't require heroic self-control. They design around weaknesses. And according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, filling and placing water bottles increase water intake by 50%. Neuroscience research also shows it takes about 66 days for new environment cues to become automatic triggers. So the most successful people aren't those with iron willpower. They are the ones who built environments where the right actions are the easiest ones. You know that moment when you wake up to your alarm and think 5 more minutes and then you hit the snooze button. Those 5 minutes turn into 30 and suddenly you're rushing. That's your brain's hesitation at work. But what if you override it in 5 seconds? That's what the 5-second rule does. It creates a tiny window where action beats procrastination. A study in the journal emotion found that motivation follows action, not the other way around. Like a student struggling with procrastination tried counting backward from 5. On 1, they opened their textbook no matter what. And researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found that a 5-second window reduces overthinking by 75%. So when you hesitate, the prefrontal cortex weighs the pros and the cons, and counting backwards interrupts that loop. It gives your primitive brain a clear signal to move, and this as well has been demonstrated in a study in the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience that showed that countdowns activate the motor cortex faster, like verbal cues like ready, set, go. You see Olympic swimmers, they count down from 3 when pushing off the wall during practice, and a study in Sports Medicine Journal found this technique improved reaction time by 0.2 seconds. This structure also increases productivity by 28%, and this is supported by a study from the University of Stanford. So the brain has a pre-action pause when facing tasks it perceives as unpleasant. This pause averages 5 seconds but can stretch indefinitely if uninterrupted. Research in the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making shows that forced countdowns reduce task avoidance by 40%. So the key takeaways from this 5-second rule is that action beats hesitation. So that voice in your head that said 5 more minutes or later is hesitation stealing momentum, and the 5-second rule shuts it down before it gains power. So don't wait to feel ready, because motivation follows action and not the other way around. So don't wait for inspiration, create it by starting. So this countdown creates a pattern interrupt. Counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 disrupts the overthinking loop and forces movement before your brain talks you out of it. This trick also rewires your brain over time, and this is because repetition builds an action between counting down and action, and eventually your body moves on autopilot. And the other trick on this 5-second rule is to start fast and don't negotiate. 5 seconds leaves no time for bargaining, and that's what makes it so powerful. You don't think, you move. So use this trick to overcome resistance, whether it's getting out of bed, starting a workout, writing, or making a call. The rule helps bypass the mental friction that stalls you. It builds habit muscle, and practicing quick start strengthens your decision-making ability across board. So start fast and think later. And this only works if you're consistent. One-off uses won't change much, but do it 30 times and it becomes a mental shortcut you rely on. And this stacks so well with other hacks. If you pair with environmental cues, like placing your phone away, then count down to open your laptop, together they multiply your momentum. So it's very powerful for tiny starts. So use it for actions that take less than 30 seconds to initiate. And the first motions usually triggers momentum. The University of Chicago found that verbal countdowns is twice as effective as silent ones for breaking unwanted behaviors. And Harvard research also showed that people who started or initiated an action within 5 seconds succeeded 70% more often than those who delayed. So this is a powerful trick that you can also try. One of the most overlooked forces in human behavior is the compounding power of small actions. We are conditioned to think that change only happens when it's dramatic, when we overhaul everything all at once, make a public commitment, or completely rewire our lives. But in real life, lasting transformation tends to begin with something much quieter. A single action that triggers another and another and another, like a row of dominoes. This concept isn't just metaphorical, it's backed by real science. And researchers at the University of Michigan and in the Journal of Applied Psychology have found that people are more likely to stick to a goal when they focus on progress markers that they can see and feel, the small daily wins, rather than waiting to celebrate the big finale. And it's not just about psychology. Neuroscience research shows that each small success gives your brain a tiny dopamine reward, which reinforces the behavior and makes it easier to repeat. Let's look at some real-world examples. At West Point, cadets who tracked their daily efforts, not their performance, ended up graduating at much higher grades. And at Google, billion-dollar innovations like the Gmail didn't start from grad planning. They emerged from small part-time projects layered into an employee's existing schedule. Artists like Kobe Bryant and Serena Williams famously didn't try to become the best in a single week. They obsessed over micro mastery practices, practicing a single shot, a single movement, over and over until it became automatic, tiny, repeatable, visible. That's the formula. What's even more powerful is how these small wins begins to shape an identity. The moment you begin to complete a tiny task consistently, one push-up, one line of code, one sentence in the journal, you're no longer someone who is trying to be consistent. You are consistent. Your actions begins to rewire your sense of self. And that's where the domino effect really kicks in. Because now you're not just doing the action, you're becoming the type of person who does the action. And that's an identity upgrade. And you should be proud of that. And the behavioral momentum theory also supports this. Once you're already in emotion, once you've done something small, the friction of doing something slightly bigger disappears. This leads to the friction of doing something bigger the next time disappears. Starting is hard, continuing is easy. So the question becomes, how can you lower the barrier to your first domino? How can you set up a system where the first move is really easy, such that you can't talk yourself out of it? That's the art of engineering momentum. And you don't need to feel motivated. All you need to do is to feel emotion. Not all goals are created equal. So why do we try to approach them all with the same strategy? You wouldn't train for a marathon the same way you will write a novel. Yet when it comes to self-discipline, self-transformation, most people default to one or two familiar tactics: willpower, to-do lists, and maybe a habit tracker, and expect them to work across every area of their life. That is a mistake. The most successful people don't just use commitment devices. They match the device to the structure of the goal and also to their own psychological wiring. Research shows this clearly. Let's look at it this way. When the goal is physical fitness, financial commitment tends to work best. Studies in behavioral economy show that when people risk losing their own money, that is if they fail to work out, follow-through rates skyrocket. But when the goal is creative, when the goal is launching a YouTube channel or writing a book, public accountability is far more powerful, because sharing your progress publicly creates that social tension, because you don't want to be seen quitting or lagging, so you don't. But the nuance runs deeper. Certain devices work better depending on whether your goals tend to fail at the starting line or in the middle stretch. If your problem is activation, you struggle to begin. A 5-second countdown or an environmental cue can bypass your overthinking and get you moving. And if you end to fizzle out after the initial excitement, devices that reward consistently, like strict tracking or public check-ins, provide long-term scaffolding. And there's also the personality angle. Introverts often resist the public accountability or group challenges. They are more successful when they arrange or adjust their environment privately, by setting visual reminders, tweaking digital spaces, or using financial penalties that don't involve other people. And extroverts, on the other hand, they often thrive under social pressure and external validation. The same device that motivates one person actually repel another. And then there is the nature of the goal itself. Learning a skill benefits from the domino effect, because you need frequent, low friction repetition to make progress stick. Try to quit a habit, for example, like smoking or over-scrolling. This often requires high-stake commitment, something with a consequence. Meanwhile, financial goals benefit from automation. If your money is transformed automatically into a savings account before you ever touch it, you don't need discipline. What you need is a system. Even more powerful than using a single device is combining them. If you want to build a habit of writing, set up an automation that blocks distracting websites for 2 hours each morning, by also sharing a progress update with a small online group every Friday or at the end of every week. And stack devices. Rotate them. Let your strategy evolve as your goal changes. And that's the real secret. Your strategy should shift as your context does. What works at the start of a project, like excitement or novelty, won't carry you through the middle where boredom sets in. What keeps you going at mile 10 is really what helps you lace up your shoes. So the highest performers aren't just more disciplined, they are more adaptive, because they know when to switch gears. So instead of asking, why am I not consistent? Ask, where exactly does my consistency break down? At the start, after a few days, when things get hard, and once you found your breakdown point, you can then choose the right commitment device, like a tool from a toolbox, not just randomly, but strategically. And this is how you stop relying on motivation and start building a sustainable system for success. So let's talk about what happens when commitment devices fail. A man publicly pledged to run a marathon in 6 months, sharing daily updates with his 5,000 Twitter followers. And it lasted only 2 weeks. This wasn't because he was lazy, but because he chose a device that clashed with his personality. And that's the first major reason commitment devices collapse: when they are poor fit to someone's personality. A research from the University of Toronto found out that 68% of people abandon such tools because they aren't aligned with their goals or their intention or their internal motivations. Public accountability can work wonders if you're driven by external validation, but for someone who is more internally motivated, the pressure to perform publicly can cause resistance or even quiet rebellion. So, just like a woman who promised that she would donate a $500 to a political cause she despised if she didn't finish her first novel draft, she hit her word count but ended up hating the writing process. The anxiety around failing poisoned the creative process, and she didn't enjoy the writing process. And a study in the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making confirmed that financial stakes do increase completion rates. They also reduce task enjoyment up to 40%. So going back to the writer who completed and met her word count but hated the writing and creative process. Later, that same woman dropped the financial pressure and instead used low-stress daily goals. By changing her strategy, she wrote more consistently and enjoyed the creative process again. The second reason commitment devices fall apart is intensity mismatch. A student made a deal with himself: study for 3 hours a day or donate $50 to a course he disliked, and he quit after 4 days because he set the bar too high from the start. And according to the University of Chicago research, people overestimate their future willpower by 300% when designing early commitments. A smarter start for this student would have been 25 minutes focused study blocks, gradually increasing this minute over time. And this same Chicago research showed that when people scale up their effort in steps, they are 75% more likely to stick with it long term. And another reason why commitment devices fail is that timing is also a common failure point. When a gym goer prepaid $200 for 3 months of personal training, thinking the financial hit will push them to stay consistent. But after he was mentally exhausted, he started booking sessions after work. About 62% of commitment failure is traced back to inconvenient timing, according to a study from the European Journal of Social Psychology. So the same gym goer eventually started exercising in the morning with a friend and kept showing up, and they saw the results and kept showing up. And poor audience selection is another killer of commitment devices. You see a developer pledge to post weekly coding projects on LinkedIn to make himself accountable, but most of his network were non-technical relatives who couldn't evaluate his work. And without meaningful feedback, his drive fizzled out. And this has been supported by an MIT research that shows that accountability only works when the audience understands or gets your goal. After this scenario, the same developer joined an online coding community. Now this is the right audience, and his output quadrupled. And also, motivation misalignment derails even the strongest commitment. It's like when a woman used a money back guarantee to quit smoking, but privately she didn't want to quit. She was only trying to appease her doctor. And after losing $300, she gave up. A study in health psychology found that internal motivation drives 53% of success in commitment-based strategies. So if you're not genuinely invested, no tactic will carry you through. Rigidity is another trap that people face. When a writer carved out every morning for writing, but life kept interrupting, emergencies popped up, and after 2 chaotic weeks, she abandoned the habit altogether. And a research from the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology found that flexible plans outperform rigid ones by 40%. That same writer later switched to weekly word count. She met it on her own schedule and sustained the habit. So sometimes the environment works against you. Move snacks to a higher shelves where he doesn't see the snacks. But his kids kept pulling them back down. An environment contributes to 72% of habit failure. And this man trying to eat healthy failed in his commitment due to family pressure, due to interference from other household members. So the solution to this, if you want to succeed in this environment, get everyone on board first. So once this man's family agreed to store the snacks in one cabin, his diet improved. Thank you for staying up until now, and I hope to see you in my next video where I'll continue from the 5th effective commitment devices and also share other tricks you can start using immediately.